Here we are again, folks. This is Brother Peter with tidbits from the Word. I've got a little chapter here, chapter 15 in the book of Judges. We're going to read the whole chapter. There's 20 verses in it. It's not too bad. Samson was a great man of God in one great big sense of the word. He also was a human man that had human failures. You got to remember, in the Old Testament, though, before the Holy Spirit was given to the disciples, they were followers of God, but they hadn't had the Holy Spirit, so that they couldn't come with the power that they needed to, and they fell at different times. Peter, it showed his falling by, he denied the Lord more than 3 times. He denied the Lord 3 times before the cock crowed thrice. Jesus said he would. After that, he denied the Lord again, 2 or 3 more times in the same setting. If you would study it real good, you'll see that. And so, without the Holy Spirit being in your life, you are weak. You are a weak person. Now, the devil, if he was able, and he was, to beguile Eve, and he did, and then Adam, by choice, said, I want this woman, and I'm going to have this woman in spite of it, and he brought sin into the world by choice. He chose that woman. Now we come to another great man in the Bible. His name is Samson. He was born a Nazarite. A Nazarite was a person who could never touch wine and never raise it to his hair, and he never was to put a razor to his hair. He killed a lion. He wasn't supposed to touch a dead body, and he did. He killed 30 Philistines to pay off a debt. Upon losing his wife, he burned the wheat fields of the Philistines. He killed 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of an ass. He ripped off an iron gate of Gaza. Now, he carried that gate according to Bible scholars, he carried that gate some 38 miles. He carried it from Gaza to Hebron and put it down. A pair of gates, steel gates, ripped them off the hinges, put them on his back, walked 38 miles and threw them down. Unreal. This was an unhappy man when he did that. And they thought they had him pinned up, but they had another thought coming. Well, listen to this. He comes home to his house, and he's fixing to go in and visit his wife and make sport with his wife. And he gets to the house, and it came to pass, when a while after the time of the wheat harvest, that Samson visited his wife with a kid. And he said, I will go in to my wife under the chamber. But her father would not suffer him to go in. This is verse 1 of chapter 15 of the book of Judges. And her father said, I verily thought that thou utterly hated her. Therefore I gave her to thy companion. Is not her younger sister fairer than she? Take her, I pray thee, instead of her. Samson would have none of that. He had a wife. He loved that wife. He was interested in that wife. He had a child. And he was not interested in taking her sister. And another thing that aggravated him here was that man gave his wife to one of his best friends, one of his companions. All right. So Samson, he got upset. And this is what he did. Samson said concerning them, Now shall I be more blameless than the Philistines, though I do them a displeasure. He's calling this a displeasure, what he's fixing to do. And this is very, very interesting. Listen to this. Samson went and caught 300 foxes, took firebrands, turned their tails together, tied their tails together, and put a firebrand in the midst between their 2 tails. And when he had set the brands on fire, he let them go into the standing corn of the Philistines, and burned up both the stalks and all the standing corn with the vineyards and the olives? And then the Philistines said, Who hath done this? And they answered, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he had taken his wife and given her as to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father's house. Wow. Who burnt her up? We need to mark that. We need to mark that. And the Philistines came up and burnt her and her father with fire. And Samson said unto them, Though ye have done this, yet will I avenge of you the affair that I will cease. And he smote them hip and thigh with a great slaughter. And he went down and dwelt in the top of the rock Etham. Then the Philistines went up and pitched in Judah, spread themselves in Leah. And the men of Judah said, Why are ye come up against us? And they answered to bid Samson, Are we come up to do to him as he hath done to us? The 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock Etham, and said to Samson, Knowest thou not that the Philistines are ruler over us? What is this that thou hast done unto us? And he said unto them, As they did unto me, so have I done unto them. And they said unto him, We are come down to bid thee, that we may deliver thee unto the land of the Philistines. And Samson said unto them, Swear unto me that you will not kill me, and will not fall upon me yourselves. And they spake unto him, saying, No, but we will bind thee fast, and deliver thee unto their hand. But surely we will not kill thee. And they bound him with 2 new cords, and brought him up to the rock. And when he came up to Lehi, and the Philistines shouted against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mighty upon him. Let's look at this now. The Spirit of the Lord came mighty on him. And the cords that were upon his arms became as flax that was burnt with fire, and his bands loosened from off his hands. And he found a new jawbone of an ass, and he put forth his hand, took it, and slew 1,000. There were 3,000 there. And don't you know they were all, he's on this rock, and they're all trying to kill him. He's got one jawbone of an ass, and he's slinging it. And that new jawbone, and he slew 1,000 men therewith. And Samson said, With the jawbone of an ass, heap upon heap, with the jawbone of an ass, I have slain 1,000 men. Wow. And it came to pass, when he had made an end of his speaking, that he cast away the jawbone out of his hand, and called that place Ramath Lehi. Now let's look at what happens here. And he was sore athirst, and called on the Lord, and said, Thou hast given this great deliverance unto the hand of thy servant, and now shall I die for thirst, and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised? Listen to that. He's questioning God, and God gave him the power to do that, but now he's about to die. But God clave a hollow in the place, in the jawbone of the ass's jawbone, and there came water thereout. And when he had drunk, his spirit came again, and he revived. Wherefore he called that place therefore En Hakkore, which is in Leah unto this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines 20 years. Let me tell you something real interesting. This 20 verses in chapter 15, God, when Samson put his heart right, immediately God was there. When his heart was right, immediately God was there. God gave him the power, undoubtedly, to catch 300 foxes. What man could catch 300 foxes? No man alive today, even if he went out where there were 300 foxes, couldn't catch them all. Bring them out, tie their tails together, and put a firebrand between them and send them out? No way, Jose. That had to be not an act of just a human being, but an act of God. By the way, let's look in 15 and see. He's not the one that burned up his wife in his house. The Philistines came and did that, and provoked Samson even then, because he hadn't done that. So now we come to where he had slain the 1,000 men. He asked God to give him the power. God did, and he slew the 1,000 men on top of the rock. The cords that they had bound Samson with, he didn't. They were nothing to him. They were nothing to him. He went down and dwelt in the top, and the Philistines went and pitched in Judah. The men of Judah came against him. Samson, we ought to do this. All right. 3,000 men of Judah went to the top of the rock, Edom, and said to Samson, knowest. So we see that God came and gave him the power with the jawbone of ass to slew those men. And God gave him the power gave him the power to first place is, I believe God put the jawbone on the ass where he could get it. What's it doing laying out there? Because it was on a rock, and perhaps that ass had died, and the buzzards had eat his flesh, and his bones were laying there. It doesn't say if there was any other bones laying there, but the one that he needed, and he's not the only one that slew people with the jawbone of an ass. There was another man that slew a large group of people with the jawbone of an ass too in the Bible. So we see that he had done some things he wasn't supposed to do. He was a Nazarite, sold unto God, and he was not supposed to touch wine and do a lot of things that he did. And after he ripped off the iron gates, betrayed the hands of the Philistines unto Delilah, was shaved bald-headed. He had 7 locks on his head, 7 big locks hanging off his head that went down his back. And those 7 locks were designed of God for him to have. You know that 7 is completion. He was complete in the eyes of God, even though he was a man. And he was supernaturally empowered to destroy many Philistines. And then at the end of it, he pulled their own temple down on them. He slew more in his death than he did in his life. Even though he slew many out there on the field, he slew more in his death. Do you know that on top of that building that there was that was made for their little g gods, that there were 3,000 men and women on top of that building, the Bible said. And when he brought it down, he's standing there, and his eyes had been put out, and they made him make sport. What kind of sport they made, I don't know, but I will tell you this. This was a sexual orgy party. This was an orgy. If you study it, this was where they came to their gods, and they all stripped naked, and they all danced naked, and it was a wild orgy. And they brought him out to make sport of him, and made sport of him. And then he said to that young man standing by him, he said, I'll put my hand, show me the column, put my hand on one side and my hand on the other, and let me rest myself. And the boy did. And he pushed the columns apart and killed more in his death. He died also, killed more in his death than he did in his life. Those 3,000 that were on the roof came down and died, plus dozens of thousands that were underneath that Colosseum-like thing. Our time's come and gone. We'll see you next time. Brother Peter, tidbits from the